Good afternoon. This is Indrajit Gupta. I'm the co-founder and director at FoundingFuel. This is our third special Google Hangout that we're hosting with Boom Live, our partners. The topic today is around disruption. Now, that's a term that you'd hear bandied about in every management conference, except that now it's for real. It's a term that's increasingly getting discussed at boardrooms, and not without reason, because new competitors are bursting on the scenes that you'd think Paytm, think Alibaba, people who are creating value in a very, very short time. New market spaces are being imagined that perhaps never existed. Think Uber or Airbnb for that matter. And incumbents, I think, are increasingly finding it difficult to keep their defenses intact or to build moats around them. So what do you do? I think that's where I think we're coming around to the view that disruption may well be an answer. If you are able to disrupt your own business with a better solution, nothing could be better. Of course, it's easier said than done. So what we've got today is a stellar panel of 4 leaders who've, I think, practiced and thought about and planned disruption inside their organizations, and I'll quickly introduce you to them. In my studio today, guests, I have Sanjay Gupta, who's the COO at Star India. Welcome, Sanjay.
Hi, thank you.
I've also got Rajesh Srivastava, who's a familiar face for FoundingFuel audiences. He anchors a very popular column called New Rules of Business and is also a professor and an author. Mr. Kishore Biyani obviously needs no introduction. He's seen as a doyen and a stalwart of the Indian retail industry, and someone I've kind of known for almost more than 2 decades now, doing incredible things across the industry. And finally, Professor Rishikesha Krishnan, from director at IIM Indore. Hi, Rishi.
Hi, hello.
Rishi's kind of written a lot on the whole subject of innovation and disruption. So in many ways, we can't get a better panel than this. So we'd kind of dive in. But before I do, I'll just kind of tell you that we've got 3 broad segments planned. One is to really understand the landscape and understand why disruption is emerging as a phenomena, and how that's kind of impacting various industries, and we'll hear from our panelists about their experiences. The second one is really, how do you lead through disruptive change? And that's the big question before us today. And the final one is really around, once we understand the lessons and the leadership lessons and all of that, how do we kind of move to a situation where firms embrace this in their basic DNA? How do you become a much more market-driving enterprise, if I may correct myself, as opposed to a market-driven enterprise? So that's the format. We'll obviously keep this conversational and try and kind of listen and learn. So first, I'll come to you, Sanjay, and I wanted you to kind of quickly walk us through how you see disruption as a phenomena impacting the business that you're in, media, because we hear a lot about that. I myself having to deal with it on a daily basis. So tell us.
So I think, let me start by saying that media is going through some really exciting time right now. As an industry, it's growing very well. It's growing at the rate of 12-13% CAGR. And if I look at ourselves as Star, we are growing at double that rate today. We are reaching out to 70 crore people every day. They spend 40 minutes with Star. Life couldn't be better. We are growing at very hectic pace and earning revenues. But equally, if you ask me, are you getting disrupted? Like how? You can't imagine. In my mind, 2-3 big changes which are happening in media. One is consumer behavior. If I look at this business, whether it is films or television, has been built on the back of somebody will come to you in a point in time. So you'll go and see a movie in a theater on a Friday evening. You will come and see a 9 o'clock news. So almost the consumers walk to a screen. Or you will go and see a show at Star Plus at 10 PM at night. Whereas consumers today don't want that. They want the screen to come to them. They want the content to come to them rather than they going to the screen. That's one big change happening. The second big change from a media point of view is the creation of content. Till now, the content creation was limited to a few set of people who had the resources, technology, cameras, crew, edit suites and all that stuff. But that's changing dramatically. It is democratization of content creation is a really big change which is happening. And therefore, everybody today can create content and publish it. And the third big change, I think, which is in relation to the first and second, but is really enabling the two to connect together, is the change in screens. We have grown up delivering content on television at Star India, and there are 170 million screens, television screens today. But look at the number of mobile screens in this country today. There are 900 million mobile screens where consumers are, and they are with them all the time. There are 200 million people in this country whose first screen is a mobile screen. So fundamentally, this space, in spite of the fact, as I said earlier, it's growing very well, but the amount of disruption which is happening is quite dramatic. And if as a business we are not prepared and plan for it, it is something that can really, the businesses can change very, very dramatically, very quickly.
That's right. That's some of them very, very interesting points about how the center of gravity is kind of shifting. I'll quickly move on to Mr. Biyani. Mr. Biyani, you heard Sanjay talk about the democratization of content. In retail, what's the reality? How does disruption really impact a leader like you, and how do you, an organization that you lead?
We always have been philosophical about change, and we have always prepared our organization to deal with changes at a regular interval. We always believed in the concept of creation, preservation, and destruction. And secondly, we also very strongly believe that nothing is permanent in life. What comes has to go, and one has to be always ready for something new which will come in. Currently, if you look at our business, we are dealing with an interesting change which is happening in the business about technology-aided commerce which is happening. And it has occupied so much of mind space, which is a mind space wherein every day you are being attacked on various fronts on a new way of doing commerce. And that's something which we are currently dealing with. And currently, I don't know how much of that change is happening, how much is real, but the amount of mind space it has occupied is something which we have to deal with that change at the moment. And that's an interesting change we have to explain internally in the organization as well as externally. So besides that, I think there is a change happening around us beside technological change. There is a change which is happening in terms of the way consumers are looking at things, the way you communicate with them, the way the consumption SKUs are emerging and changing. So as a retailer, we deal with change on a day-to-day basis, because what has sold 10 years ago is not going to sell again today. So as a retailer, we are trained to deal with change in a larger context. So I think the new context is the technological change which is emerging in the country, and dynamics of India as consumers, which is very young set of consumers who are digitally savvy and are more researching of products, more aware of the prices than the earlier consumers used to be. So, and I believe the change is not what is there right now. We are more dealing with the change which is going to come in tomorrow. So how do you forecast a change? How do you look at the new predictions which are happening, new consumption which will happen? So we have to deal with that scenario, which is much, much more serious than the current issues which we are grappling with currently.
Thank you. I'll go to Rishi. Rishi, you heard both Sanjay and Mr. Biyani talk about two things. One was the whole impact that technology is having on existing businesses. And also Mr. Biyani talked about, and Sanjay talked about, the whole role and emergence of this new consumer, or prosumer, as some people like to call it. The issue that I wanted to kind of bring to your attention was that sometimes it's becoming very difficult to predict where the next source of competition is going to emerge from, right? Who knew, would the hotel industry have ever been able to predict the phenomena of Airbnb or even oil rooms back from India? How do business leaders and organizations deal with that phenomena?
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a significant challenge going forward. because in almost any industry now, it's very difficult to predict where the next competitor will come from. I think one thing is pretty clear now that, first of all, wherever something can be digitized and can be put on the internet, that's going to happen. So you should be really looking at your entire value chain and looking for any opportunities for digitization in that chain. Second, you are going to have a lot of decentralization or disaggregation, as it might be called for both the hotel industry and the taxi industry. Third, you are moving away from a system which was very tightly licensed and regulated to one which has much looser affiliations. So you would, conventionally you would have thought as hotels as very regulated spaces. You would have thought as taxis as people who had to get licenses from local regulatory authorities. But now you're looking at very decentralized, almost individual suppliers. So it's related to the disaggregation point I made earlier, but it's a fact that a lot of this is happening without the traditional requirements of regulation and licensing. So I think these are the places one needs to look out for if one is looking for new disruptions to happen. The first point is essentially anywhere that you see the potential for digitization, anywhere you see the potential for disaggregation, and the third point is wherever you see the possibility of removing licensing or regulation.
Right. Rajesh, I'll come to you. Mr. Biyani talked about predicting what's next and how hard that is to do. We all know that, and businesses have tend to kind of sometimes rely on consultants to figure out what's going to happen next, which I'm not sure is necessarily a very smart thing. Now, how do you kind of then develop the capacity? I mean, of being able to see what's the fork at the at the bend, at the end of the road, if it were.
Indrajit, I personally believe that we, all the people who are sitting here, the industry leaders, they have to bring about a change in their mindset. What I have noticed is that most of the corporates are actually competitor-led. They look at competition, and then most of us try and bring out a better version of what they are doing. That's innovation, but that's incremental innovation. So the way to get out of this trap is that we should stop looking at competitors and start looking at our own customers. So that's the first shift, and everything that we should do which should be done for our customers. So what do we now do? If you're focusing on our customers, let's try and understand what are their pain points and remove them. So I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. Let's take Amazon. What did it do when it got into the e-tailing business? When it came to books, it predicted that someone is going to come and destroy the business, and in this case they felt that Apple would. So before Apple could come and destroy their business, they proactively put in an entire exercise which led to the creation of Kindle. So Kindle, Indrajit, was one of the devices that was supposed to disrupt and destroy Kindle's existing business model, and they succeeded. Today Kindle is a very important part of the armory. Take Netflix. Netflix disrupted Blockbuster from its preeminent position. It became one when it came to delivering DVDs by post. But Reed Hastings, looking at the customers and what Sanjay mentioned, what did he realize? That there is a shift that is happening in customers. Customers today want to consume content at the time that they desire, on the device that they desire, and on the screen they desire. Having realized this, what did he do? He took his most successful business and converted it from DVD delivery to online delivery of content. Indrajit, when he took that shift, his share price fell, but he believed that is what was in the interest of his customer, and he continued. Today, Netflix share prices are soaring up. So what's the lesson? The lesson is as old as the hills. We should stop focusing on competitors. For God's sake, it doesn't really matter what the competitors do. I personally believe that I am in the business of serving my customer. Whatever is their pain point, I need to eliminate them. And the second thing, if I have to do that, I have to become my own strongest competitor. What do? When I become my own strongest competitor, I have to destroy my own business before others do.
Sure.
But re-emerge in a more stronger and formidable avatar.
Sure. Sanjay, I'll come to you. Do you agree with Rajesh that companies tend to be competitor focused and obsessed about tackling competition instead of reimagining?
Yeah, I think he has a very valid point, and I'll share our own example and our own challenges just to build on what he said. I think the bigger the company, the more successful the company, the bigger the challenge, I feel, because then you can get complacent. I think one of the challenges I feel is the mindset, and the mindset also about, are you playing to defend your market share and defend your business, or are you there to grow your business? To me, that's the one big distinction between people who have disrupted versus people who have withered away. I think the mindset that you bring to say, why do you exist in this business? I think the second big difference in my mind, just building on the point that he made, is around knowing what's the core of your business. I think fundamentally, if you look at Star, it is called a broadcaster. It is seen as a TV company. But internally in the company, we don't believe we are a TV company. We define our business, we are in the business of telling stories actually. And to me, defining your business sharply around what you stand for is the way to really find different ways of disrupting your own business model. So today when we are doing Hotstar, we are saying Hotstar is one more screen. We know consumers are changing. We know technology is changing. We know this is going to be a dramatic force. It's a tidal wave which is coming on us. We should be participating in it and growing our business because we are there to engage consumers with powerful stories that we have, be it in drama, movies or sports. And that really solves for what do we need to do next. Then we don't worry about that digital is going to take away or mobile is going to take away my business. It's about saying it will actually grow my business. And that really starts solving for some of the fundamental challenges that businesses face because they start. So I think it goes back to the point that you have to be consumer focused and your core business focused to really grow your business and disrupt.